Namaskar, welcome you all to this session on principles of disaster risk management, or in short you can tell DRM. In fact, it is in continuation with the previous session and you can call it is part 2 of that session. Building on our foundational understanding of DRM, today we will shift our focus to the guiding principles that will make risk management effective and sustainable. These principles help us transition from respective response to proactive strategies addressing vulnerabilities before disaster strikes. The core themes we will explore include integrating risk reduction, preparedness and resilience into developmental planning while fostering collaboration across various stakeholders. Ultimately, these principles aim to safeguard human lives, protect critical assets and minimize economic disruptions and promote ultimately sustainability in disaster prone area. Now we are moving to risk informed decision making. In fact, risk informed decision making is a cornerstone of effective DRM. By integrating a detailed understanding of risk into planning, we ensure that decisions are strategic, data driven and focused on minimizing disaster impacts. This comprehensive approach addresses the root cause of vulnerabilities, balancing social, environmental and economical consideration for long term sustainability. What is the outcome? Optimized resource use, better community preparedness and enhanced resilience to handle potential disasters effectively. Now let us try to understand the risk landscape. Understanding the risk landscape starts with through risk assessment. These involve identifying hazards, exposure, vulnerability using various tools like historical data and forecasting models to pinpoint high risk areas. Hazard mapping is one tool that plays a critical role visually identifying vulnerable areas such as seismic zones and floodplains, enabling targeted planning and interventions. Advanced technologies like GIS, remote sensing and big data enhance real time environmental monitoring that improves the accuracy and response time. Now engaging stakeholders from local community to the policy makers that ensures inclusive, culturally appropriate strategies. Let us discuss an example. In mountainous areas prior to landslide, hazard mapping helps designate safer zones for development in the area. Now let us try to integrate risk information into planning. To manage disaster risk effectively, embedding risk data into planning processes is so much essential. Urban planning and infrastructure projects must account for potential hazards, applying forward thinking safety and sustainability measures. Land use planning helps minimize exposure by restricting development in hazard prone areas like flood zones. Risk based budgeting ensures funds are allocated to high priority risk reduction projects such as flood barriers or upgraded drainage systems. As example, earthquake prone cities enforce zoning regulations that prevent construction on unstable soil, reducing risk significantly. Now let us talk on risk informed preparedness. Preparedness strategies informed by risk data, and this is very critical to protecting communities. Tailored emergency plans addresses local hazards and vulnerabilities, and this ensures relevance as well as effectiveness. Now early warning system or EWS combine technology with community networks to promote timely alerts enabling quick evacuation and loss reduction. Public awareness campaigns disseminate vital information about disaster risk and safety protocols using schools, events and digital platforms. For example, a coastal village using early warning system can evacuate residents ahead of a cyclone, reducing casualties and damage. Now let us talk about risk informed sustainable development. Sustainable development must integrate disaster risk consideration to build a safe, resilient communities. Climate adaptation practices such as water conservation and sustainable agriculture addresses climate variability's long-term impacts. Supporting resilient livelihoods by promoting alternatives like agroforestry reduces dependency on high-risk activities. For example, agroforestry in flood-prone regions provide diversified income while improving environmental resilience. Now let us see how stakeholder engagement is very much needed. Stakeholder engagement is very pivotal to successful disaster risk management because disaster risks are interconnected and it affects everybody. Inclusive processes ensure diverse perspectives are included, addressing the needs of all stakeholders, particularly vulnerable groups. By involving communities in decision making, we build their trust and foster accountability, encouraging better adherence to disaster management protocols and practices. Now let us talk identifying key stakeholders. Key stakeholders play a very important role in disaster risk management. Communities are the frontline responders, rather you can say they are the first responders with invaluable local knowledge, and it is essential for effective strategies. Governments lead policy making, funding allocation and coordination efforts. NGOs fill response gaps, providing targeted support to vulnerable populations, and private sector contributes through technological solutions, logistic supports and additional resources, meaning thereby altogether every stakeholder has a role to play in both preparedness and response measures. For example, logistics firms collaborating with relief organizations can expedite food and medical supply delivery during emergencies, and effectiveness can be enhanced. Now, importance of stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement ensures that DRM plans reflect local needs, addresses community specific risks and their vulnerability. Cooperation fosters seamless resource sharing during disaster response and recovery phases. Inclusivity empowers vulnerable groups addressing the unique challenges they face. For example, collaborating with indigenous communities integrates traditional local knowledge into effective flood management practices or any other disaster management practices that is being faced by the area. Next point is a strategy for collaboration. What strategy we need to follow for effective collaboration? This requires participatory planning where stakeholders co-relate disaster management strategies through meetings and workshops. Public-private partnerships combine resources and expedite to develop resilient infrastructure and emergency response systems. Community-based DRM focuses on localized efforts like forming disaster response teams or conducting awareness programs at the local level. A telecom company partnering with a local government to establish emergency communication system can be a great example of collaboration in action. Now let us see what challenges the stakeholders faces. Despite its importance, stakeholder engagement faces great challenges like coordination gap, where diverse priorities hinder alignment. Unequal resources can limit the participation of smaller organizations or communities lacking funds or technical expertise and support. Cultural and linguistic diversity may require adaptive approaches to ensure meaningful participation. Developing multilingual educational materials for culturally diverse regions is one way to address these barriers very effectively. Now the next phase is to build the resilience and how it can be done. Building resilience involves creating systems, communities and infrastructure which are capable of recovering from disasters while minimizing vulnerability. Rather they can become better than the earlier one. Resilience strategies are multidimensional, covering physical, social, economical and environmental aspects. The goal is to establish a solid foundation for swift, effective and outcome based recovery and sustainable development even in the face of recurring hazards. Physical resilience. Physical resilience is the critical in ensuring communities and infrastructure can withstand adversities and disasters or the hazards. This involves constructing resilient infrastructure such as earthquake resilient buildings, flood proof roads and reinforced bridges. Next, retrofitting older structures with modern safety features significantly reduces vulnerability and this provides added protection during disasters. For example, retrofitted schools buildings in cyclone prone areas ensures they can also serve as emergency shelters, protecting both lives and essential services. Next comes social resilience. Social resilience focuses on empowering communities to respond and adapt effectively to disasters. Engaging communities in disaster risk management ensures they are well trained, aware and equipped to handle crisis. It is important, rather equally important, to allocate specific resources and services to vulnerable groups such as women, children and elderly. A prime example is organizing first aid and evacuation drills for women and children in high risk areas. This strengthens their ability to act during emergency. Next comes economic resilience. Economic resilience ensures communities can recover financially after disasters, reducing long term impacts. Diversified livelihood promote alternative income generating activities, making communities less vulnerable to disasters. A new concept, insurance schemes against disasters such as microfinance, protect assets and enable faster recovery of the vulnerable community. For example, offering affordable insurance to farmers in flood prone area provides a safety net against crop losses due to flood and that ensures financial stability post disaster to the vulnerable community. Next comes environmental disaster and against that how to create environmental resilience. Environmental resilience harnesses nature based solutions to protect communities as well as the ecosystem from disasters. Restoring ecosystems like mangroves, wetlands and forests creates natural barriers against hazards like storms, floods and erosion. Sustainable practices such as land use policies to prevent deforestation and soil degradation further enhance ecosystem resilience. For example, planting mangroves along coastline reduces impact of a storm while it supports biodiversity and local livelihoods. What are the challenges in building resilience? In building resilience, the challenges are especially the resource constraint in that region. Financial constraints often limit access to funding for large scale resilience projects, particularly in low income areas. Technical expertise is another barrier, with insufficient capacity to design and implement advanced resilience strategies. Social inequalities such as barriers faced by unprivileged groups make assessing resilience initiatives more difficult for them. Overcoming these challenges requires targeted funding, capacity building programs and inclusive strategies. What are the opportunities in resilience building? Despite challenges, significant opportunity exists in resilience building. Technological advances such as predictive modeling, artificial intelligence and satellite monitoring greatly improve disaster risk management. Global cooperation through international agreements and platforms facilitates knowledge sharing and technical assistance to the developing or underdeveloped nations. Grassroots efforts encourages community led initiatives addressing local vulnerabilities and building a strong resilience. A great example is a community managed restoration projects which improve flood resilience and it fosters local ownership of the solutions. How to revive the local economies? Reviving local economies is very vital and key component of disaster recovery. It ensures long term resilience and sustainability. Economic support measures include offering grants, loans and vocational training to business and farmers affected by disasters. Diversified livelihood programs reduce dependence on high risk economic activities, strengthening community adaptability. Let us discuss an example. Post cyclone recovery programs in Caribbean supported small business and farmers, helping them rebuild and thrive despite challenges there. Now comes how environmental restoration can be done. Environmental restoration, though very critical for reducing disaster risk and enhancing ecological balance, this restoration, like forests and wetlands, serves as natural defense system mitigating future risks such as floods and landslides. A notable case study is the mangrove restoration efforts in Sundarban and coastal region of Odisha in India, including Southeast Asian area, which has reduced storm impacts while supporting environmental health of the region, enhancing their livelihood. By enhancing such supports, it continues to long term resilience in both ecosystem and human communities. That is why nature based resilience, or rather you can say nature based solution, is the sustainable solution and that has to be encouraged. What are the principles of effective recovery? Effective recovery hinges on adherence to key principles that ensures sustainability and inclusivity. Community participation is essential, involving local residents in decision making process to tailor recovery efforts to their specific needs. For example, Christchurch earthquake recovery focused on community led planning, ensuring solutions were locally relevant. Recovery efforts must also be inclusive and equitable. It should be prioritizing valuable groups to address disparities and promote resilience across all sections of society. Next comes to what are the challenges in recovery. Number 1, recovery from disasters often faces significant challenges that require strategic solutions. Resource and logistic constraints, including limited funding and complex coordination, can slow the progress. For example, 2005 Kashmir earthquake highlighted logistic issues in aid delivery to remote areas, delaying critical recovery efforts. Another challenge is balanced speed and quality during reconstruction. ensuring that constructions are safe and sustainable while minimizing delays. Addressing these challenges requires efficient resource management, robust planning and inclusive stakeholder engagement. Now, let us discuss the role of government and the NGO. Government and NGO play vital role in disaster recovery, working collaboratively to maximize impact. Rather, we can say they complement each other for early recovery. Governments lead in settling recovery priorities, allocating funds and coordinating activities at the national or local level. NGO complement these efforts by bridging resource gaps, providing technical expertise and directly supporting vulnerable populations. A strong example is United Nations coordinated efforts during global health crises like Ebola, where governments and NGO work together to save the lives of that region. Collaborative efforts between these entities are very essential for comprehensive and sustainable recovery. Now, we are transitioning from response to recovery. A smoothly transitioning from disaster response to recovery is vital for building long term resilience. This involves clear planning to shift resources and focus from emergency relief to rebuilding and rehabilitation efforts. A good example is transitioning from temporary to permanent housing following major disasters, ensuring affected communities regain stability in shorter time. Continued community engagement throughout this phase keeps local support strong and it ensures recovery aligns with community priorities. Now, let us discuss what are the conclusions and what are the future directions. As now we are going to conclude, it is important to emphasize the integration of disaster risk management into long term developmental strategies. Building resilience must become a cornerstone of sustainable growth, ensuring societies are better prepared for future challenges. Leveraging technology and fostering local engagements efforts tremendous potential for improving disaster management outcomes. The path forward involves creating resilient societies that can withstand and recover from disasters while ensuring the well-being of the people, ecosystem and economy. As we conclude this enriching session on disaster risk management, let us carry forward the insights and strategies discussed to build a safer, more resilient communities. Together, our collective action can mitigate risks and prepare us better for future challenges. Thank you for your active participation and dedication to this critical cause. Thank you very much. Namaskar.